Now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
6:07 here on this Wednesday morning, the 24th day of July. Thanks for tuning into O'Connor and Company. Always good to speak with you on a daily basis. Coming up at 6:35, Cal Thomas is going to join us. At 7:35, Cal Potter, editor of Thrifty Travel, will talk about the travel nightmares. In fact, we're going to get into the details of that in just a moment. Also at 8:05, we'll speak with the chairman of the Republican National Committee, how the presidential race and down-ticket races have now changed radically, with Kamala Harris seemingly at the top of the Democrats' ticket. We'll get into all of that as the morning develops. It's Larry O'Connor with Julie Gunlock.
Good morning.
Good morning, Julie. Absolute travel nightmares going on out there. This time it seems that Delta has been hit the worst. They still haven't been able to reset from this weird CrowdStrike so-called glitch they were told about. But have no fear. Our Secretary of Transportation, Pete Buttigieg, he flew back on his own government plane from Los Angeles after appearing at the Bill Maher show.
Yeah,
he didn't have to deal with it, but he's put a statement out. Let me read it to you. This came out yesterday. The Department of Transportation has opened an investigation into Delta Airlines to ensure the airline is following the law and taking care of its passengers during continued widespread disruptions. All airline passengers have the right to be treated fairly, and I'll make sure that right is upheld. Well, there you go. It's good that Kermit Buttigieg is on the case there. That's fantastic. Now I feel better. I'm sure every Delta passenger who's been stranded for days on end and can't track their luggage down because it arrived when they couldn't. Over 5,000 flights have been canceled between Friday and Tuesday. We don't have the updated numbers, including
they just
overnight
keep
last
canceling
night.
them. They canceled 1,000 for a fourth day in a row.
Yeah.
They keep canceling. You can't get rebooked.
Adam Tuss, who covers this for NBC Washington Channel 4, had an astounding photograph at Reagan National of the luggage, the suitcases that have been just sitting there waiting for their owners at the Reagan baggage claim area because of all of the problems with the global outage. And again, this is all stemming back towards CrowdStrike and this firmware software that they had that wasn't compatible with the latest Windows upgrade. By the way,
Good God.
I don't know if this is 100% accurate because I haven't been able to get like 8 different verified sources. That's the sad thing about the media today.
Yeah.
Is that you see a couple of stories like, okay, until I see 8 different sources that I trust that verifies this.
Yeah.
But I have seen that one of the reasons, Southwest, who has had their own share of problems over the course of the last several years, one of the reasons why I don't fly that airline anymore, they dodged this bullet because they had such an outdated version of Windows.
No.
Like they had been running on a operating system that was several years, which is just perfect Southwest. Because Southwest is basically your dad's airline.
I do personally feel like that's like a personal story, like of success, because I always have the outdated everything.
Well, I was going to say it was my dad, but sure, or your co-host, the person who refuses to update the latest operating system. It's like, what's wrong with 3.1? 3.1 was fine. It'll never get better than that.
Exactly.
So they're running on Windows 3.1 or something outdated like that, and that actually saved them from getting struck by this.
How do they not know this? How you think about this? How did Delta not prepare for this? Don't they hire people? Again, we've got a competency crisis in America right now, and it's going to get worse if you look at the current young generation.
But it is a great point where I assure you Delta Airlines is no different than every other major Fortune 500 corporation today, including the one that we work for, where every quarter you have to go through cyber training to make sure that you don't click on a phishing email or you don't respond and you don't give your credit card and you don't
forward on
expose your forward emails around. You don't expose your corporation to malware or viruses. Every single Delta employee, I guarantee you, has had to go through all of that cyber training. And yet the very people who put out the cyber training, who were constantly lecturing you about, making sure that you have the right triple redundancy security checks when you're just trying to check your email on your mobile phone, they're the ones who let this slip through.
Yeah.
Who let maybe their primary function should be to make sure that this stuff works instead of worrying about somebody, clicking on an email for Viagra in their inbox.
Well, the
I'm
airline,
hypothetically speaking, I mean.
Well, if you're into miles,
I am into miles. I collect miles with one airline in particular.
You're in good luck because apparently Delta has been passing out Sky Miles. One
like
person,
candy.
yes, saying I'm so sorry.
Here, take 100,000 miles, 55,000
miles for getting stuck overnight. But it is
that's
it
not
is
a
really
whole
sad.
lot, I'll be honest with
no,
you.
I know, and there are the pictures of these people standing in line. I saw a video of a woman. She's been in the airport for 4 days with her kids. They won't give out hotel vouchers. So this really, I don't know how you don't rent a car. I think our friend Molly and Mark Hemingway actually rented a car
and drove back from Milwaukee.
Drove back from Milwaukee.
Yeah,
because
I think you're right.
They suspected something like this, they'd be stranded, and we know that some people did get stranded in Milwaukee for several days.
Well, and it appears that Atlanta's airport is the worst, and that makes sense because that is Delta's main hub. That's right. So if United has something like this, it'll be Chicago and Denver that get hardest hit. If American has this, it'll be Dallas and Charlotte that'll be hardest hit. And in Atlanta, the videos and pictures streaming from Atlanta right now are absolutely chaotic. They're insane. We just spoke with Hogan Gidley yesterday. He was coming back to the Florida, somewhere in Florida from Milwaukee, and it was a 2-day odyssey for him as well.
I always think of people who are on vacation and have limited time off.
Yeah.
And, this cuts into their vacation, or they have to cancel their vacation, or you go on cruises.
I gotta say, I have, knock on wood,
I know,
I have dodged the bullet, and the airline of my choice, and they've had a couple of speed bumps along the way that at times when I don't travel. I also choose to travel when not everybody else is traveling, and I think that helps.
Yeah.
Summertime is really, really rough for this sort of thing because this is where it's more likely to happen, or around the holidays, right? Like
unless you're
Christmas week.
traveling on Christmas Day, which is a great time.
It's a wonderful day to travel, and Thanksgiving Day, by the way. I've flown on Thanksgiving as well. But my airline, so far, of the major problem, Delta is this time. Southwest had a couple of real bad problems over the last couple of years. I remember United. I'm an American guy. I do American Airlines.
I feel like you should cross yourself right
I
now.
I know.
Honestly.
Well, who's the patron saint of flight delays?
I don't know. We got to look that up.
I'm sure there is one. Probably.
Well, St. Christopher is patron. Is that travel?
I'm not sure.
All right,
We're dabbling into paganism.
Yes, exactly.
But anyway, I was thinking it's the Junipero Serra. Is it Christopher Junipero? Anyway, he like levitated. He was known as a levitating person, and he's the patron saint of space flight and air
well,
flight.
St. Christopher is the patron saint of travel, so we'll
All right,
travel.
there you
So
go.
we'll just go with him.
Anyway, American so far has not had this problem, but if you rely on one airline, and that airline is the one that has a disaster, do you then rethink your allegiance after all these years, after all these miles, after getting to know the lay of the land? Because isn't it weird? Are you married to one airline? Have you done that?
No.
Oh, see, I am.
I'm married to the cheapest.
And at any given time, if I have to fly on another airline, it's disorienting. It's like I'm wearing somebody else's shoes.
That's so funny. Well,
it's
you
really
travel a lot
disorienting.
more than I do, and I know people do get really, and people really track their miles. And
Yes.
I don't do that because I don't travel as frequently.
I flew back to L.A. when I first moved. I've been here 12 years now, but in the first 3 years, because my children were much younger,
Right.
I was flying back sometimes twice a month to see them. I got to know the flight attendants by name because it was always the same
Getting
flight.
the upgrades.
Yeah, and they were listeners, by the way, too.
That's
I
nice.
just want you to know. It's 6:15. Oh, coming up to talk about this even further will be the thrifty traveler, Kyle Potter. He's joining us later in the program. To talk about if you are one of the people stranded, what you can do.
Thrifty traveler.
Thrifty
It's my
traveler.
type of
There you
guy.
go. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's 6:15 WMAL traffic and weather every 10 minutes. First on the fives. Here's Steve Hirshhorn in the Hadid Carpet Cleaning Traffic Center.
Around the Beltway, the outer loop is getting slower now from
I believe a child going without an education is tantamount to a crime. So I decided I was going to start prosecuting parents for truancy. Well, this was a little controversial in San Francisco.
Kamala Harris, your new nominee for president. There's so much about that little clip that speaks so much of who she is. I believe that getting a child without an education is tantamount to a crime. So I decided to start prosecuting because it's all about, this is what I believe. So now I'm going to use the law as a weapon and my power to persecute people. And, oh, by the way, I'll cackle about it
She
as
really
well.
does take pleasure in harming people.
Yeah, David Harsanyi has a great article at The Federalist yesterday, which reminds you of the totalitarian, authoritarian leanings of Kamala Harris. There's, just montage after montage available to you in her own words about what this woman stands for and how she wants to use the power of the state to reform our country in her own mind. They keep comparing her now to Barack Obama. And in that respect, she is very similar.
Can you imagine how angry that makes Barack Obama?
Well, in terms of the radical political positions
sure.
and the use of power to remake America in their own Marxist vision,
Sure.
there are similarities.
Oh, of course.
But in terms of the magnetism and the ease in front of an audience and a camera,
The cool factor.
But while this is all going on now, and understand, there is a huge story that still is yet to be told. Several stories. Number one, about how Kamala Harris participated in the single greatest political cover-up of our time, hiding the true state of Joe Biden's mental and physical capacity. She needs to answer for that,
Yes.
and it doesn't look like the media is going to make her answer
More
for
importantly,
it.
the Republicans need to stop focusing on her dating history and focus on her record and on covering up the condition, Biden's condition, and how this transfer of power happened. Because it really is sort of like a monarchy. I'm passing the torch to you.
Right. The second aspect that they need to look at is how this entire transfer took place and how it was a putsch. Everyone's using the word coup that, summons visualizations of tanks rolling down the street. No, it's a putsch. This is a party putsch. This comes back to the old Soviet time when the general secretary was the dear leader right up until the moment he no longer served the party's interest, and then he's pushed aside. And within 24 hours, you have your new dear leader.
Yep.
And that's exactly what we've seen. Meanwhile, don't count on the media actually doing that job. The top 6 articles, thank you to Peter Hassan over at Free Beacon, points out the top 6 articles at the New York Times yesterday afternoon. Number 1, Harris rallies exuberant Wisconsin crowd saying, "When we fight, we win." Next headline, delegates see Kamala Harris as the strongest candidate against Donald Trump. Third one, what Kamala Harris's path to the White House looks like. Next article at the New York Times. This is how the Biden campaign quickly transformed into the Harris campaign. Next one, the unflattering memes once used to denigrate Kamala Harris are now celebratory artifacts, our critic writes. Next one, when it comes to food and politics, Vice President Kamala Harris is riffing on the recipe. That's how the New York Times is now covering this whole thing.
That's the hard-hitting questions and coverage that Kamala will get.
And if you point out, people are saying, well, she's a DEI candidate. She was literally chosen by by Joe Biden in 2020 because she was a black woman. Joe Biden literally came out publicly and said, I don't know who my vice president is, but it's going to be, well, first he said it'll be a woman. And then he came out and said, well, I've narrowed it down to 4 black women. And the rumor was that was James Clyburn's assertion. He handed over South Carolina to Joe Biden, and Barack Obama got Pete Buttigieg and Claire McCaskill to drop out of the race and clear the way for Biden in exchange for naming a black woman. So when the president who is choosing the running mate publicly proclaims that I'm going to choose a black woman, and then you ended up being the one who was the black woman, and you didn't get there on merit.
Nope.
Because you had to drop out of the presidential race before voters had a chance to reject you because you were polling at 1%.
Yes.
So merit was not involved in this political process. Well, let's see. Diversity, that would be she's a black woman. Inclusion,
She's
that would
Indian
be she's
and
sure.
Jamaican.
Well, it depends on which audience she's talking to.
I know.
And then equity. Yeah, equity is when you get something even though you didn't merit it or deserve it. So that would be the D, the E, and the I right there. But if you call her a DEI candidate, you're racist. Yeah.
Yes.
They're already trying to dictate the terms of the debate and the language that we are allowed to use.
Yes. It's the way this goes forward, it's always that you have these glowing reports about the Democrat. Doesn't matter who it is. This is why it's so dismissive and insulting. They're not looking at her record. They're not looking at the content of her character. It is just that she is the Democrat. She might beat Trump, that's it. And then the knee jerk for the right is Nazis, racist,
That's right.
sexist.
Listen, there are plenty of things to say about her record, and we'll be reminding you, but at this moment, it doesn't matter. She's actually not running on her record, and frankly, she doesn't have much of a record. She didn't accomplish much as a U.S. Senator. She didn't accomplish anything as vice president. In fact,
Nothing.
she is tied to every bad policy
Disaster.
of the Biden administration. And what she did as Attorney General in California is basically usher in the laws and politics that created the nightmare that is California right now, where in the first time in their history, more people are leaving that state in droves rather than moving into the Golden State. She's helped ruin California
Yes.
with Jerry Brown and
Yes.
with Gavin Newsom.
Yes.
So, we're more than happy to run a record. They're not. They're running on, pictures and images, and they're claiming crowd sizes.
Well, and
They say 3,000 yesterday packed a stadium, which was actually a school gymnasium. And the photographs that you see, listen,
And again,
it was more than Biden.
It always
but
annoys me. It always annoys me when the left talks. She packed something. All you have to do is call the SEIU, call the teachers unions.
Yes.
Okay, they can get the bodies there. We know that the unions can mobilize. They're very good at that. So it's not organic. It is a union movement to get these rooms packed.
Get ready for the propaganda blitz. Thankfully, any listener to this program is prepared for it, because I've been saying this for months and months and months. At some point, it'll be Kamala. I thought he was going to step down and just give her the presidency, and she'd run as an incumbent.
That's what most of us thought. Yeah.
But I said she's going to get a honeymoon like you've never seen as this transformative figure, even more than Hillary and even more than Obama, because she checks every single box. I have no doubt she'll come out and talk about her lesbian experiences in college, which might attract a certain audience.
Wait, what?
But the point is, allegedly,
how could we be right up on the? You just bring that up, right?
It's 6:24.
Now,
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It is 6:37 on the 24th day of July. Thanks for tuning into O'Connor and Company. We love being part of your morning routine. We got plenty to talk about today. Coming up at 7:35, Kyle Potter is the editor of Thrifty Travel. We'll talk about the disaster that is Delta Airlines travel right now, what caused it and how to fix it. And is it just Delta's fault? At 8:05, the chairman of the Republican National Committee, Michael Whatley, about the brand new race we've got now with Kamala Harris seemingly the nominee for president for the Democrats, and how that's going to affect not just the presidential race, but down ticket races as well. That's all coming up. I'm Larry O'Connor, alongside Julie Gunlock.
Good morning.
Good morning, Julie.
I think that I am the best person to lead the Secret Service at this time.
That was Kimberly Cheadle Monday in that hearing where she confirmed that she is the best person to continue steering the ship at the Secret Service. And then 24 hours later, she decided she needed to go, or someone told her she needed to go. Joining us right now is Cal Thomas, syndicated columnist. This doesn't look like a resignation, I want to spend more time with my kids kind of thing, Cal.
Well, the most remarkable thing to come out of this was seeing on television last night Jamie Raskin and Comer, the chairman of the committee, actually agreeing on something.
Yes.
This was the most remarkable hearing. Republicans and Democrats saying, yeah, she should go, mostly because there was no political benefit to have her stay. That was the most unbelievable hearing. She didn't know anything. It's like those monkeys, know nothing, see nothing, say nothing.
Yeah, but it's not like she's in charge of enforcing fishery rules for the Interior Department. She heads the Secret Service, and we had an assassination attempt that came a quarter inch from taking Donald Trump's life.
Well, Larry, you've always said that I find a way somehow to get a musical involved in our little appearances
Yes,
every year, and I've been thinking of Irving Berlin, the great Irving Berlin's last musical, Mr. President was called, and it had a song in it it was the daughter of the president who sang "The Secret Service Makes Me Nervous."
That's a fine Berlin lyric. Same man who brought us "God Bless America." So
that's right.
They're acting now in this town, Cal, as if, okay, she's gone, remedy to the problem, let's move on. There's some serious questions that need answers to. Isn't there? I mean, this is the Secret Service, for God's sake. And I feel like we're not going to get it for, I don't want to wait 40 years for Oliver Stone to make a movie about it.
That's a great point, as usual. That's why you make so much money on this station. Always have a way of summing things up. Yeah, it's the old changing the captain on the sinking ship analogy. The problem is structural. I mean, you looked at that group of congresspersons who went up on the roof, and one guy said, "Hey, I'm 70 years old. I'm up here," and the excuses. Oh, well, we didn't send any on the roof, said Cheadle, because the slope was too great, or it was too hot. That was another excuse. Yeah. I mean, come on. You're supposed to, and the signs, the guy might as well have had one of those spinning red lights on his head for all that he did. We don't know anything about his parents. The FBI hasn't released any information. The Secret Service hasn't released any information. This has all the makings of a cover-up, a typical Washington cover-up where nobody is ever found fault. You know, Reagan used to say the only proof of eternal life in Washington is a government program, and the same applies to government service. If you're in the government, failure is not a reason to get rid of you, but it couldn't be helped in this case, especially when both parties were in favor of it.
Yeah, well, talking about another media cover-up, the media has already started boosting Kamala Harris already, talking about how she is the next coming. And Larry, can we play cut 7? This is Van Jones talking about Kamala Harris.
Free at last, free at last. Kamala Harris is unleashed. She's just brilliant. She's just, the energy that's coming off of her is the energy that's coming off of the American people. Look, I mean, this is 2008 vibes already. She's done in literally 48 hours things that were considered impossible. She got the nomination. She took over cultural. She's a cultural phenomenon now. TikTok loves.
Oh, stop! You gotta somebody give Van Jones a wet nap.
Yeah.
She has all the depth of floor wax, all shine, no depth. I mean, this is ridiculous. Every media outlet, Washington Post, New York Times, all the networks, the broadcast networks, they're all behind her, and it's really sickening. There's no more reporting. It's Pravda in Washington. It's totalitarianism. But I don't think if you watch these videos that are all over the place now, she is channeling Porky Pig in her speech. You can't. She can't put together a simple declarative sentence. She makes Joe Biden look articulate. I didn't think anybody was going to be able to do that.
We're going to have to leave it there, but I'll see your Irving Berlin, and I'll raise you one more. Call me Madam, or by Irving Berlin. Are we going to have to start calling her Madam Vice President or Madam President at this point?
Well, that has other implications and brings up Willie Brown, and I think we ought to stay away from that.
See, there we go. Typical
that,
right wing. Yeah. Thanks.
Okay, who was the star of Call Me Madam?
Ethel Merman. You're not dealing with an amateur here.
Yeah, that's good. That's very good, Larry.
Thank you.
I won't call you Madam. Bye.
It's 6:43. I don't know. That could help my career these days. It's 6:43.
Making sense of your world.
Thank you very much for covering this topic.
News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
Making sense of the news.
It's 6:49. Thanks for tuning in here to O'Connor and Company. There's too much news to handle in our daily escapade here. Julie Gunlock, let's take a quick look at how the entertainment world is responding to the Kamala, or is it Kamala? Kamala?
You're racist if you mispronounce it, by the way.
But she pronounces it 3 different ways, depending on who she's talking to.
Oh, interesting.
Kamala.
It's Kamala.
Is that what we're going with?
I used to say Kamala, but I think it's Kamala.
All right, Kamala Harris. George Clooney is now endorsing Kamala Harris after
big surprise
throwing Joe Biden under the bus. Well, he does like the dusky women, doesn't he?
He does.
Look at his wife. Hollywood star and longtime Democratic fundraiser George Clooney has endorsed Kamala Harris's presidential bid after calling on Joe Biden to bow out of the race. So he got his way. We've got the George Clooney approved president.
It's so fast. He hosts this big fundraiser. People give millions of dollars,
Yes.
And then he escorts him off stage, waits a long time to say anything, like lets the cheap fake kind of narrative go. People are being so mean to Biden. He's perfectly fine. He's perfectly happy. Then comes out with this op-ed in the New York Times, kind of people think orchestrated by Obama's people, written by Obama's people. And now he jumps on the Kamala bandwagon. I mean, that all happened in a matter of, just a couple weeks.
And now that he's telling you basically exactly what he said about Joe Biden when he was raking in $30 million on his behalf, he's saying the exact same thing about Kamala Harris. Oh, she's the best. She's the greatest. She's wonderful. Give us money. One is forced to ask the question of George Clooney, rhetorically, because we'll never get the opportunity because we don't travel in those circles. Mr. Clooney, is there anything about Kamala Harris that you're withholding from the rest of us like you withheld about Joe Biden?
Yeah.
I mean, you're telling us the same things about her.
You know what, Larry? I bet they're going to ask that question when he goes on The View.
Yeah, sure they will. Absolutely.
But notice these, even when we heard that clip last hour when we were talking to Cal, Van Jones going absolutely nuts, saying all this stuff about Kamala. There's never any specifics.
No.
It's all these sort of, bromides in general terms.
She's a cultural phenomenon now. TikTok loves her. She raised more money than anybody. She signed up 50,000 people. You can do your whole career and not get 50,000 volunteers. She did it in 48 hours. You are witnessing the birth of a cultural phenomenon, and you need a cultural phenomenon to stop a cultural phenomenon.
Has he heard her laugh?
It doesn't matter. She fits the suit, man.
She does. That's right.
She's exactly what they need. The strings are attached, and she'll do and say what she needs to say, just like her mentor, Joe. It's 6:50.